Hello, everyone. I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen, and I'm your host of today's episode of Heads Together. Today is Wednesday, May 5th, and you may or may not have heard that this past Saturday, May 1st, my former employer, Olympia Dukakis, passed away after a pretty long illness. So those of us in her life knew it was going to happen. It was not a surprise, but death has a way of taking you by surprise, no matter if you are expecting it to happen. I have decided to dedicate today's show to Olympia Dukakis. The subject of today, which has been planned for several weeks, is a subject that was near to Olympia's heart. It's about how women behave with other women in the workplace. And I've invited a colleague, an EA colleague from New Jersey, onto the show with me today. But before I introduce her to you, I'd like to share a few thoughts with you. For a few minutes, I pondered canceling today's show, and actually Susan offered to not do today's show. And I decided, no, what Olympia Dukakis would say to me is, Bonnie, the show must go on. Always. We both have a theater background. And so that was a no-brainer. Of course, the show must go on. And so it will. In dedication to Olympia, I am wearing the beads that she gave me. She gave me so much jewelry over the years, and I'm wearing the ring that she gave me, designed by a wonderful Greek designer, Constantino. I want to welcome all of our viewers. Hi, Lynn. Welcome to everyone onto the show today. You are welcome to comment and put your questions in the chat as we talk about how women behave with women in the workplace. It is a subject very near to my heart as well. It stops so many of us from doing our best work when there are issues between women in the workplace, and especially since we're in a profession of assistance that's 95 to 98% female. So there are so many reasons to talk about it. In honor of Olympia, I'd like to just share with you 3 photographs. Jen, could I ask you to put up the first one? This photograph was really early on in our work. I was with her for 25 years, and I began in 1986. This photograph, I'm pretty sure, was from 1990. Olympia had already won the Academy Award. That's the two of us at the podium of a press conference that we were doing. That's Governor Tom Kean sitting on the dais with his wife, Debbie Kean. And next to her, you see his arm and a leg, and that's Governor Michael Dukakis. I sent that picture to Michael today and said, sorry, I'm just showing your arm in this photograph. And at that podium was a very kind of not very confident young woman, but I was gaining confidence by 1990 after having been with Olympia for 4 years, let me tell you. Jen, let's go to the next photograph. This next one is of Olympia, Louis, and me. Olympia was married to the amazing Louis Zorich. Louis was an actor as well. Louis starred in the TV show Mad About You as Paul Reiser's father. And I worked with a celebrity couple, therefore, for 25 years. And Louis passed away in 2018, and they were an amazing couple. I learned so much from them. They have 3 grown children now. Now, when I first was pregnant with Adam, Olympia was one of the first people I told. And I remember asking her, she already had 3 kids. And I remember saying to her, Olympia, is it possible to be a great mother and a great worker? And, there I saw in her a role model for that already, but she didn't hesitate. I'll never forget her answer. She said, Bonnie, I'd rather have a working mother working for me than anybody else because they're forced to be so organized. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, all right, game on, let's do this. And so we did. Jen, let's go to the next photograph. Olympia wrote the foreword to be the ultimate assistant. She was so supportive of my work. And this photograph is with Olympia and Patrick Healy. Patrick succeeded me at her office after I left after 25 years. Patrick stayed for the next 4 years. And there we are speaking on a panel at Be the Ultimate Assistant workshop. A few years back, Olympia came to 2 workshops and our students were just delighted. Both times I kept it a surprise because you know how it is with employers. I just was so worried that there might be something that happened at the last minute that would prevent her from coming. And so better everybody was surprised than disappointed that she couldn't be there. But, we had such fun and she was so generous with her support. And she, from the very beginning, understood what it meant to have an assistant, to have me at the table, being the other set of eyes and ears and the other set of hands. And, many of you have heard me say this before, that, she would say, Bonnie, I may not always agree with you and I may not always do what you say, but I always want to know what you think. And so for 25 years, we were 2 women working very well together. We had deep respect for what each other did, that she was looking at what I did, as her assistant, and she wanted no part of it. In fact, she would, have a query. She would ask for something and she'd say, ask the internet, it'll know. She had no interest in a computer. Of course she had a mobile phone, but she really just wanted the freedom to do her work. And I was an actress for like 5 minutes, so I didn't want to do what she was doing, but wow, did I have a deep appreciation and respect for what she did. We were 2 women who supported and valued each other's contributions. We did not compete. We communicated. And it's not that we didn't have problems at times. Of course we did, but it's the way you approach those problems. It is in the way you do it. So I'm going to pause for a moment and take a look at the folks coming into. Thanks, Jen. Welcome to everyone on the show today. And I welcome you to put your comments in the chat and your questions. I am about to introduce our guest for today, who very kindly offered to cancel, but I said, no, if you're up for it, I would love for you to talk with me about this really important subject, about how women behave with other women in the workplace. A few weeks back, maybe a month ago now, I reposted on LinkedIn an article about queen bees. Queen bees, the woman in some workplaces who bullies other women. And the term is dubbed queen bee. I hope we can move towards a time when there aren't any more queen bees in the workplace. But Susan, and I didn't even write this article, by the way. Susan was one of the people, I've known Susan for the better part of a year. She came to a workshop that I did, and she had a very strong response to the article, very strong. And she was maintaining that many women have moved on and have not succumbed to this kind of bullying and childish behavior between women. I contacted her and she didn't hesitate. I said, why don't we talk about this on Heads Together? Clearly you have a point of view. So let me tell you about Susan and then invite her in to tell her story and tell you why she feels so strongly about queen bees. Susan has been an executive assistant, a C-suite executive assistant for over 30 years. She's a Jersey girl like me and like Jen. She grew up in Carlstadt, New Jersey. She works For the Hackensack Medical Center, she will probably correct me on that one. She has much education. She graduated with an associate's degree from Bergen Community College, and she went to Catherine Gibbs, the Catherine Gibbs School with an advanced secretarial program certificate. Many people today wish that it was referred to at the time as the Katie Gibbs School. We wish that the Katie Gibbs School still existed because of the need for training in the profession. And that school closing caused all of this other proliferation of training, like the one Vicki Evans and I teach, Be the Ultimate Assistant. Yes, it's the Hackensack Meridian University Medical Center. And Susan continues to study. Now, what she says is that two of her most her accomplishments that she's proudest of, have to do with the mentoring of other assistants to elevate in their careers as executive assistants. She takes great pleasure in that. And in 2019, she launched the Administrative Professional Summit at the Medical Center. And of course, it didn't happen because of the pandemic in 2020, but in 2019, it hosted 150 executive assistants, and that was a very big deal. And it still really gets me that these efforts took all the way till 2019. We've heard on Heads Together how many of these efforts are so recent that cannot be one and done. It must be forevermore that we keep learning like this. Susan shared that in her signature block in her email, and when you connect with her on LinkedIn and you communicate with her, I suppose you'll see this quote, which I love. She writes, "Candles lose nothing by lighting another." Isn't that perfect for today's conversation? Susan makes it her business to elevate others and not rather than bring them down, which is what queen bees do out of power and other reasoning as well. Susan has two kids, 30 and 25, and her daughter, no surprise, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. She is an executive assistant. Let us give a nice virtual welcome to Susan Pomponio. Welcome, Susan.
Good afternoon, Bonnie. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's great to see you again.
It's great to see you too.
We have to do that, right?
Yes.
Well, welcome, Jersey girl.
Thank you.
Welcome to everyone on the show today. Thank you so much for coming. It's so great to have all of you, and we welcome your comments and questions. And Susan said she's up for everything. But first, as is our tradition, I want to ask you some rapid fire questions as a way to get to know you. Are you game for that?
I'm game.
All right, let's go. Who's your favorite musical artist or group?
The Eagles.
I love that. Yes, that's one of mine too. Favorite vacation spot?
Wildwood Crest.
Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore.
Favorite dessert?
Creme brulee. That's my go-to.
I was predicting maybe a Jersey Shore dessert, but I don't think they have creme brulee on the boardwalk.
Ice cream from Duffers.
If you could have only one book on a desert island, what would that be?
The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. And I think that changes. Those 5 people change depending upon the day and what you're going through. But the 5 People You Meet in Heaven, I think, is a book I could reread all the time.
I must read that. I have my own heaven theory, if we have time to talk about that. Favorite app on your phone?
Mint, M-I-N-T. It helps with all your personal finances. It keeps everything going live. And I know it's looking inward at me, but it's keeping an eye on me globally. So I like that.
Is it free or is it?
It's a free, yes, it's free. You put your bank accounts, your investments. It does a credit monitoring. So if something changes immediately, I know it. But I'm able to look and see how I'm progressing. And I really enjoy that.
Good. In the chat, lots of people love that book, Susan. Very good. Least favorite sound?
Dental drill.
Oh,
Ooh, any type of a drill. My husband does work at home. I'm
Yeah.
like, don't use the drill. But a dental drill is my least favorite.
What's your favorite quote?
I think this one right now that I have posted. A candle loses nothing by lighting another. I do change my quotes every so often, but this one I've had up the longest. The other
Yeah.
one I really like was Winston Churchill. If you're going through hell, keep going.
Tell us one thing that people would never guess.
People ask me a lot if I was a cheerleader in school, and I was not. Unfortunately, back then I was bullied, and I was not in the popular groups. That I actually was part of the NJROTC program, and I took a lot of flack and still do. People like to bust me about that. But when I was in that group, I felt comfortable with the people I was with. So I am now a cheerleader for others, and I champion out for others to help. But
Yeah.
I wasn't a cheerleader when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Mm.
And then your favorite movie?
Okay, I have 3. The original one is To Sir with Love with Sidney Poitier. And if you've seen the movie, he's helping kids who don't necessarily believe in themselves. And at the end, it turns that he's really helping himself. So that I just get chills on. My second is Sabrina. And I like the one that had Harrison Ford in it, because I know it's been made several times.
Yeah.
And she goes to Paris and finds herself. And when she comes back into her normal home routine, she still realizes she found herself and went back to Paris. So it's a matter of self-realization of knowing and loving who you are. And the third one is a more recent one, is On the Basis of Sex, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg story. And that, I just watch it every time it's on because it's so phenomenal to see the strength and the perseverance of her and her husband who supported her and stood up for her. And I really, really enjoy that movie as well.
Thank you, Susan. Well, that certainly gives great insight to you. And it's a perfect segue into our subject today, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Because Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not loud. She was not large, in terms of height, but she was big. But in part, it was the support from her husband that helped push her. It's not that she wouldn't have succeeded anyway, but that support meant everything. For me, certainly Olympia's support. And I know you're going to talk about who has supported you.
Yes.
So I mentioned earlier that you responded very strongly to that piece I posted on LinkedIn about queen bees. Susan, talk to us about what are queen bees? And I know you experienced one or two.
I've had a few in my history of working. Yeah.
Talk to us. Tell us your story.
Well, I've been in the public sector, private sector, government sector, and now healthcare sector. And unfortunately, I've had queen bees above me in all of them. It's not fun. Nobody likes it. And it personally makes me feel that I'm not worth something or what I'm doing is not right. And that's not the way to be. One of the queen bee stories that I can tell you is that I had somebody that was always nasty, shooting me down and, I don't want to say snide comments or whatever, but just didn't believe in my work and would always just slight me. And I, would only do the work to my level. I'm always trying to get better. I'm still learning things, but, I've had people say that they've never had assistants work the way I work, which really makes me feel good because I'm trying to be ahead of them. I equate it to playing chess. I'm looking down at the other moves before they need to be there. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where it was just so nasty that, I actually said to the queen bee, I said, I don't want your job. I'm not aiming to promote myself to get where you are. I don't want it. I'm happy where I'm at or happy working where I'm at. But I don't want your job. So please don't think I'm trying to do better than you to get your job. And it took a while, but she finally settled down and we did end up kind of a little bit working more together I'm still waiting for that second shoe to come at me a couple times, but it was I had to say it more than one time. I don't want your job. I don't need to be where you are. I'm happy working with who I'm working with and how I work. So, somehow we've got to work this out.
Yeah. Can you talk about the price you pay for working with queen bees? And yeah,
I've lost a lot of colleagues because they just don't want to deal with it anymore. And they say it's not worth it. And I said, again, it makes me feel it makes me second guess myself. And that's not right. Nobody should do that. I learned that I am the only one who actually feels something in my realm. Others can say things, but if I'm not reacting to them, then I can't take that feeling on. So by queen bees belittling us, not taking us seriously, or slighting us, or like, oh, it's her again. Well, I'm going to be here. I'm not going away. So you're going to have to change, or we have to find some common ground to work on. And that's kind of like what I went with. I did end up, like I said, working with her for a bit, and then she ended up, that person ended up retiring, which, lined up for others to come in. But I've heard from a lot of people, like, I can't believe that you can talk with her, that you can work with her. They cringed when the phone call came. And when I was having issues, I did go to my boss. I know we don't like that word, but my boss at the time, and he fully supported me, and he took me to HR, and we sat down and talked with them. And I said to them, again, I'm not looking to take her job. I just want to be able to do my job and be able to work with the person. So we worked a few things around, and it worked. But to have the support of my boss to take me there and say, we need to work this out, that means the world to me.
Do you know for sure, did they speak with her?
I believe they did, yes, because for a while there was no phone calls. And I was told that if we call them screamers, pick up the phone and somebody's screaming in your ear. And I was told that all you have to say is, you can't talk to me that way, and hang up the phone. So I never got another screamer. So I'm taking it that, the person was spoken to, and it, however that got handled, I really don't know. I just know that it did calm down. There were always flare-ups. Like anybody else, you'll have a flare-up here and there, but I never got the screamer again. So I'm very thankful and very fortunate for that.
Yeah, but is it safe to say that there were days when you dreaded going in because you'd have to?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So let us notice, everybody listening to this right now, that when I hear stories like this, to me, it feels like high school or junior high, when yes, they talked to her, and then there was just no talking. Oh, we don't call each other. What? No, it's 2021. There is far too much at stake. If assistants feel that we are not respected and perceived in an elevated way, this is the reason why. This is part of the reason why, and it makes me crazy. It certainly made Olympia crazy. In fact, before I forget, Olympia would often say, when women would behave badly, and in the theater, it happened also, she had zero tolerance for it because, in the theater, there were small budgets and there was not a lot of room for nonsense at all. And in the workplace, there isn't either. And she would often say, Bonnie, the only people who benefit from women fighting each other and biting and demeaning and abusing, etc., are men. Men are very busy getting promoted, running companies, helping one another succeed. And there we are bickering. Right. I mean, it simply does not make sense. However, there are reasons for it. We are socialized when we're very young. We get messages as girls, young girls, to be competitive with each other, to view each other as adversaries. And we need to have sessions like this to break the cycle.
I agree.
So, Susan, we talked on the phone, and we agreed, we're both of a certain age. And, as we age, we gain confidence. But there are many women in our profession who lack confidence. You made mention of you had a turning point moment in your life. Would you share that with us?
Sure.
And then take us to today, working with who you're working with and who's got your back. How did this happen that Susan came to this place?
As a young girl, all the way through high school and even early being married, I always wanted to be liked. I always wanted to be, have a good time, not that have a good time, but to be liked and be accepted, because I always felt I wasn't. And not long after I got married, I'd say, I was not jumping jobs. I was jumping into different positions within jobs. And I said, I'm tired of trying to please everybody and make everybody like me. I'm going to do my job the way I know best and not second guess myself when others make me or I feel they're making me. And I started to be more honest with myself. I said, I've got the training and I've got, I know where I'm going with my job. I know what my boss expects, and I always want to have an open dialogue. And right now, I do have a very open dialogue. But back then, it was harder to have it. So I kept inserting myself and making my wishes known. And it took a while. Most of it wasn't accepted. Like, you're over there, you'll take care of things. But when I started making things happen that weren't asked for, because I'm playing chess, I'm making things happen ahead of my boss coming in looking for something. It's already there, it's here. Then my bosses at that time started realizing I had value. And when I started speaking up, I was taking notes in a meeting one time, and I asked a question. I said, you're all talking these different things. I said, I have a question. And they stopped, how could you speak in here? You're just taking minutes. I said, I'm observing this and these things are happening. Why not that? And they stopped and they looked. And they're like, that's something we can look at. And I started taking pride in myself to say, I really have something to offer, that I'm not really just in stealth mode, because a lot of assistants feel they're just working in stealth mode. And one of the things I happen to recently see is I see a lot of C-suite executives, not where I am right now, but that may change, that we deal with, and their assistant's name and phone number and email is on the bottom of their signature on their emails. I think that's phenomenal. So if you can't get the person you're looking for, get their assistant, and right there's their information. And that's one of the things I'm going to be bringing forward here, that we should have our names with our executives on their signatures.
Yeah. Jen is on my email signature, and lots of people go to her first, and I love that. Totally love it. So tell us about your current executive, would you please?
Sure. I work at Hackensack Meridian Health Network, which used to be Hackensack Health and Hackensack University Medical Center. And we merged with Meridian Health 5 years ago. And since then, we're still growing. But I work for Bob Glenning, who is the president of Financial Services and Information Technology Divisions and the CFO of the entire network. Bob and I have worked for 15 years together. And when I interviewed with him, I walked out saying, I didn't get that job. I just I didn't feel a true connection. And then I got the phone call, I got the job. I'm like, wow, this is great. So we've worked on our communication skills over the 15 years. And I just actually had my annual review with him. And I said, I always ask for better communication. I said, actually, I can't ask that this year. I said, the communication we've had, obviously because of the pandemic, has been paramount. When I call, I feel he's engaged with me. He's paying attention to what I'm saying. He's not a coyote ugly, chewing his arm off to get out of the conversation like he's done. So it means a lot to me. Bob has always been a big champion of mine. He encourages me not only to better myself, but to help bring others along. I actually finished my associate's degree in 2015 or 2018. I forgot off the top of my head. But that was with the encouragement of Bob, because he's like, keep going. Just keep taking the courses, plug at it. And I did. And I'm very grateful. And the hospital and the network paid for it. They paid a certain percentage of it. So that helped.
Right.
When I went to Bob and I said that I wanted to go to your event. He said, absolutely, take whoever you want. So I was able to bring 2 other assistants to your event. And we very much enjoyed it. The ladies were very enthused that I was able to bring them with me. And like I said, back in 2019, it was actually, took probably 2018, it started.
Yeah.
I went to Bob and I said, I'd like to put on a summit. I want to get a committee together and put on a summit and bring the EAs together in this network. Now we have 50,000 people that are employed by Hackensack Meridian Health. Of that, I think it was like 14 or 18,000 people who were in the EA type role. They could be a secretary, administrative assistant, executive assistant, or some are coordinators. It depends upon where they came from. And he said, absolutely. He said, well, I need support from the top down. Can you talk to Mr. Garrett, our president and CEO? And he said he would. And he did. And he came back and he said, you've got the support. Let's get it together. And we rolled it out. I was able to get a committee. We had help, but we got a committee of 12 women. And we offered it out to all the EAs, and none of the men chose to participate, but that's okay. And we sat down and we had monthly, weekly, and ended up daily meetings. And we pulled off the summit. And like I said, we had 150 people. Our room was at capacity. We had it in-house. So we had worked with a zero budget. We had marketing kick in the extra tchotchkes that they had laying around. We had catering. Our education department picked up the catering cost for us. But we had a full day summit here, and it was wonderful. And
you're going to have it again.
We're going to have another one. We're going to keep this going. I'm going to get the committee back together, and we're going to keep moving on it.
So, Susan, tell the story about the cubicles, because I want to get back to queen bees and why they behave the way they do. Because it sounds to me like on your committee of 12, you didn't permit any queen bees on that committee, right?
Oh, no, absolutely not. But what I was able to do was all the women stepped up and they all had different things to do. And we just worked beautifully. It wasn't competing. It was who wants to do this? And they took it and they did it and it worked. So when we were moving down to the network office, when we moved 5 years ago, they made a quad, 4 cubicles on my side. I'm on the west side of the building. And then there were 4 cubicles on the east side. And we sat outside close enough to our executives' offices. So really, it's a quad, 4. And we worked that way for about 3 years. Well, we've expanded, and now we have more executives and we have more assistants. Well, they were going to add 2 more assistants to our quad. So they were going to add half cubicles to the end because there's no physical footprint for it. And I said, I wouldn't want to be the person coming in getting half a cubicle because I should be working at the same level they are. I'm an EA in the C-suite. So I thought about it, and I went to the other 3 ladies in the quad and said, how about we work together and give up some of our space? Because we had more like a double cubicle to be our space. I said, if we each give up one, the wall, the partition, one partition out of each. We worked with the gentleman, Don Ellis, who was in charge of making the floor plan. I said, if we give up space from each, can't you make them all the same? You'd be willing to do that? I said, all of my ladies and I were all ready to do this. And he's like, I've never even thought about that. Let me see if I can get more cubicles and more desks. And they did. They shut us down for a whole weekend, and they took our cubicles down and built 6 identical sized cubicles.
And the other 3 assistants gave you
absolutely.
But what if one wasn't, Susan?
Well,
what if, because we had a comment from Tiffany Nien on here that the behavior of queen bees are more about their own insecurities and not about who they are bullying. Agreed. Yes, Tiffany, you're right.
Absolutely.
So, Susan, you've been doing this for 30 years. Talk through, because clearly queen bees still exist today.
Yes, absolutely.
What if one of them had not been cooperative and said, I don't want to give up my space. What did she think or whatever the behavior would be? What are some ideas about how you would have handled that, please?
Well, at Hackensack Meridian Health Network, what we're but we live by the 4 C's: compassion, courageous. I'm going to draw a blank because I'm I'm under the gun at the moment. But
No
one of the
worries.
big things that we also deal with is empathy. Empathy is very big. We're in a healthcare atmosphere. If
Right.
we can't empathize for our patients, we need to empathize with each other because we need to support each other.
Okay.
And that's something that we've been working with since we've been in the quad. Now, what's interesting is some of us came from Hackensack, some came from Meridian. But when we sat down in our quad of 4, we were just calling over the cubicle walls. Hey, who's done this? Who's got this? We just started meshing. And we just kept expanding it. Now, I honestly don't know what I would have done if one of the 3 said no. I would have just kept talking about it and kept pushing on it and to say,
Okay.
would you have liked to have been in a half a cubicle? Would
So you
like
would
to
have
be that
appealed
way?
empathetically. You would have
Yes.
tried to have the queen bee or the bully put
Yes.
herself in the new person's place. And
Mhm.
can you imagine what that would feel like? And you're choosing communication.
Yes,
To
absolutely.
say, I'd really like to talk this through
Mhm.
and like that. And that's what's missing in the
Absolutely.
workplace is the setting of the culture. I think we could do a whole lot better from setting the expectations right from the interview. So Susan, how do you do it at Hackensack when you get somebody new in there? How do you set the expectation of the culture so that queen bees know from the outset that
Mhm.
those behaviors are not welcome. They would not be accepted.
Right. What we've started doing actually, since we're down in the network, really again, going back just 5 years, which isn't long enough, but it's still, we've gone.
Hey,
We've
better
actually
late than
been,
never.
right. You have to start somewhere. And
Right.
today's always a great day to start something. But we
Exactly.
started actually peer interviewing the executive assistants that were going to be coming into the C-suite.
Love it.
And it made a difference. The ladies that are on the other side, they had to hire a new legal EA. I was happy to, and I was on the panel that hired the new EA that was there. And
Right.
it was great. And the questions that I listened to the other EAs ask, I was like, ooh, that's a good one. I didn't think of that. Those questions I always try and trick you. What kind of tree would you be? But on the take of that, one of the other EAs asked, what song would you be? What is your music? Like, what can we get from you that way? And it was very interesting because the person actually had an answer to it. And I was like, wow, I never thought of that. But by interviewing the EAs and other assistants at whatever level,
Right.
we're able to talk to them and say, hey, look, this is how we work. We're in a quad. We yell over the cubicles. We're on chat. We can text if we need to.
Right. Okay.
We help each other. And one of the big things that I've always said, and I made a point of saying at our summit, is we don't have to know everything. What you need to do is know where to go to get the answer.
Yeah.
And right now, Hackensack Meridian Health is going Google. And we're leaving Outlook. And it's a challenge. We're all
terrifying for some. Right?
Yes, terrifying for some.
Yeah.
And we're all running with scissors. We're learning as we're going. I said, it would have been nice to have a couple days to learn and then start kicking in. But instead, obviously, we're rolling with the punches. But we're all taking courses. We're all doing different chats. But hey, has anyone done this? I've done it. And then they show you. And yet I can show you something else. So we benefit by helping each other, not keeping the secrets to ourselves. We don't need, the term gatekeeper helps keep our boss where they need to be and others separated when they need the separation. But we need to be a team member. And that's what Hackensack Meridian does. We're all team members. We're not employees. We're all referred to as team members because that's what we are. Mm-hmm. And EAs, we need to be an even tighter knit community. And when we had the summit, it was great because you're so-and-so. I've seen you on emails. Now I know who you are. So Perfect. It was great to have that person-to-person contact.
Yeah.
And I feel, personally, I can learn from everybody. Something good or something bad. It doesn't matter. I'm learning. And I feel I can help others and I can teach others. My way is not the only way.
Right.
My way is one option. and I'd like to share those options so you have different views. And that's one of the things that we do.
30 years in the business. Now, you
Yes.
said earlier that, you know, when queen bees, when bullies are permitted to do their behaviors in the workplace, it chases good people away, right?
Yes, we've lost a number.
People start running for the exits. They figure out, and while they're there, they're figuring out how to leave. So so leaders need to address this issue because it's detrimental to the organization. You're losing money. To replace people is expensive. It destroys morale. It destroys productivity. Susan is painting a great picture of, you know, in peer interviewing. Susan, may I ask, how many years ago did that start? When did you start interviewing executive assistants?
Well, 5 years here at the network. Now, I did interview a couple when I was back before we merged, but at that point, we weren't
5 years ago, really.
Yeah, really 5 years ago, because
It
prior
makes
to that,
so much sense, doesn't it?
It does, because you know, the executives are interviewing their VPs or managers and directors because they have to work with them.
Right.
We have to work with the other EAs too. We should be able to
who
say,
knows better than you all? And then you can give them examples of what the culture is. You know,
yes,
you know, we yell over cubicles and things like that.
Right.
So these are challenges in those workplace. And now for everybody on the call, we're going into this hybrid, very complicated situation.
Yes.
Some people working from home and some people going into the office. Those are going to cause communication challenges for the profession. Absolutely. And I wanted to raise this issue with Susan today so that you are better prepared for, like, okay, we know what this is. How do we not get sucked into the rabbit hole of conflict? How do we look at that challenge and decide that we're going to do it better? Susan, you wanted me to ask you this question, and I want you so much to answer it.
Yes.
What's the hardest thing you've had to learn to do?
All right. Drum roll, please. You say the word no.
When did you learn how to do that?
Probably in my 30s.
Okay.
It really took me a long time. Again, I am a people pleaser. I want my people to like me.
And tell everybody on this call how they learn to say no to.
Well, you would need to look at what's being asked. Okay, I had a previous CFO that I worked for, and he says you can handle 5 things. When that 6th thing comes in, you have to say no to something. Sorry, fingers in the wrong spot. But say no to something. So you have to be able to say no, and it's not no. I'm not going to do it. You can say, I can handle these. Or I can add this one in. What is your priority for me?
Right.
So that's how to say no to your boss. It's redirecting it, but you're still saying, I can't take them all. Also say no for others. Hey, I need you to add this in. I need you to take this on. Well, what I ended up doing is I would take the information down and I'd send it to their assistant saying, your boss stopped by. They asked for this. Here's my boss's availability. Please set it up at your convenience and I'll accept it. I'm not setting up that meeting. It's not my boss's meeting. My boss may have said, yeah, we'll go ahead and meet. That's not my boss's meeting. So for me to be able to say no to an executive who drops by and says, I need a meeting, not a problem. I take it, give their assistant the information, and we go on from there.
Right. So Susan, let me ask you, when you interview, when you're doing your peer interviews, do you address this no issue in interviews?
Yes, I do.
Help us, because there are people on the chat saying, how do I do this? Help.
Right. Here's an example. I had a vice president that kept coming to me and asking me to, Bob wants this meeting, set this up. And I kept saying, your assistant will do it. I'll work with your assistant. And they just kept coming to me. So finally I said, well, obviously I'm not going to get through to him. So what I said was, okay. And I took all the information down. I said, so then what I do is I craft the email up. I look at the calendar and I get times available. And I send it to that person's assistant, copying them on it and saying, this meeting was requested. This is my boss's availability. If you need other time, let me know. But if you get this, if you get it, then set it and I'll accept the invite. And I would, before I sent it, I actually went to that person's assistant. I said, you're getting this email. And I'm going to explain why. I said, so you're not getting it cold and you say, oh, she's just not doing what she's asked. I said, I'm letting you know, if your boss is coming to me, he's not using you. I have enough work on my own. I can't keep taking on every executive that works under my boss. And they like, no, I want, give the work back to me. Send it back to me. So then I started doing that. And eventually that executive did stop coming and ask.
Train them. You train them.
It takes training.
Actually, Susan, I was curious to know, in an interview setting, do you address the issue with a potential new assistant about the ways to say no? That,
I'm sorry, that part.
You're going to have a certain amount of work here. And if you ever feel overwhelmed, it's really important that you let us know. Like, do you have that? Do you talk through that?
Not during the interview. I will say that I do talk when they actually start the job.
Onboarding. The onboarding
yes.
process.
The onboarding process, yes. When we talk, we meet. We all have our own cheat sheets and all our own little ways of helping each other. And that's one of the things I do try and talk about.
Yeah. This is just a wonderful subject. And, on the chat, I'm seeing that saying no is something that is such an issue with assistants. And why? Because we're in the yes business.
Exactly.
We're in the business of saying yes, but we only get 24 hours in a day. So something's got to give if you're working at high productivity and you're still drowning and you're still having to take work home at nights and on the weekends. We need to use our mentors like Susan. So that mentorship is an antidote to queen bees. High communication, peer interviews. I mean, this session has been filled with actionable ideas for addressing the bad behaviors in the workplace that are so detrimental. And there's just far too much at stake to permit it to continue. In the chat, I've asked Jen to put in a few articles that I've written. One is called Women Turning Off the Default, which is about how we're socialized as young girls so that we understand what these behaviors are. Another one is Why Women Need to Help Other Women Succeed. And then if you haven't seen it, I did post a tribute to Olympia Dukakis, from whom I learned a great deal about what it looks like to be a working woman in this workplace, where you can do it without losing your femininity. You can be assertive without being aggressive. You can do what Susan suggested, which is to go to another assistant and say, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so, it's you're working as a team. You're letting others in. Say your quote again, Susan, the one that's on your emails about the candle.
A candle loses nothing by lighting another.
Amen to that. As we finish up for today, Susan, oh my gosh, this time is flying. Do you have any final thoughts for this audience? Any final words of advice? Because I know, for example, Marion Freund, I know you asked a question about your Susan's summit. Susan, I'm going to advise that Marion connect with you on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
Susan's contact information, her LinkedIn profile is in the chat. She's inviting all of you to connect with her, but Marion specifically to know what they talked about at the summit. I'd love to be at the summit one of these days. So Susan, would you please share with us?
Okay. Well, I have to say, believing in yourself and in your skills, that you do your job the way you do it. You can always learn from others and you can always teach others, and never stop learning. That's really, really important to me. Yeah. And like I said, now we're going Google. So now I'm learning all the Google tricks. So it takes a lot. And be empathetic. Understand that everybody has their priorities and everybody has their demands, and you just don't know what they are. You know what yours are, and you would hope that others are empathetic to you as well.
Right. So we need to let them in. We're getting one question. Do you ever feel guilty for saying no, Susan?
I used to, and now I move on, because you know what? I'm looking forward. I'm looking into the future. And if I feel guilty, that's about the past. I used to actually relive every day in my head when I went to sleep. I could have done this different. I could have done that better. I should have responded this way. And I was tormenting myself. And I said, why am I doing this? I can learn from myself, but I'm moving forward. And that's where I chose not to feel guilty anymore about saying no.
We as women beat ourselves up mercilessly.
Yes.
And it's in part because of the way we're socialized. So I hope you'll read the article that I wrote. So Josephine is writing that this session has been tremendous help. You're currently job searching. Josephine, you are welcome to connect with me and Susan. And depending on where you are geographically, we happen to know a lot of people. So, yes. And in fact, people on Heads Together have gotten positions. Let me just say that next Wednesday, our guest will be someone who Susan actually knows. Monique Hellstrom will be our guest next Wednesday. We're going to be talking about communication in the workplace. Susan, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You shared some great tips and wisdom that comes from 30 years of hard-earned experience and learning. It's no mystery, right? It's no mystery when you work at this level. What I think is also important is that, you've had mentorship in your career, Susan. You're working with a terrific executive right now. Yes. I certainly had Olympia Dukakis. We need people. We need mentors who have our back, who can help lead us by the metaphorical hand to say, this is an option here. We need mentorship. We need it so much more than the queen bee syndrome needs to die a quick death, as far as I'm concerned, right? Yes. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk with everybody, and I'm happy to connect with everybody. And just for mentorships, remember, it doesn't have to be someone in the EA role.
That's right.
There are many, many strong women you can learn from. Yeah. I have people that I connect with that are in the construction business, in the safety business. I have people that are both public and private sectors, men and women.
Give her a try. It doesn't hurt. And assistants want to help. That's the thing we see at B2A all the time. So I hope you'll check out betheultimateassistant.com, connect with Susan. And if you are a fan of Olympia Dukakis and enjoyed her films, I hope you'll check out the piece that I wrote for LinkedIn today in tribute to the amazing woman who I worked with for 25 years. She was an extraordinary, not only an actress, but an extraordinary human being, and who I loved very much and who lives inside me every single day. So until next week, I wish you a great rest of the week and see you next Wednesday.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thank you.